Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Bondi says she'll release some Epstein evidence. Tulsi Gabbard has evidence that Obama officials fueled Russiagate. RFK and Rubio rejected the WHO pandemic powers, and will backers of ICE protests be deemed terrorists? Okay, let's get into it. Today, the State Department and Health and Human Services officially rejected last year's World Health Assembly changes that would have given the World Health Organization more power during pandemics. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the formal rejection of the 2024 amendments to the International Health Regulations, the IHR. The departments jointly stated the amended IHR would give the WHO the ability to order global lockdowns, travel restrictions, or any other measures it sees fit to respond to nebulous potential public health risks. Rubio and RFK Jr. said that there was a deadline this month to reject the amendments. Otherwise, they would have become mandatory in the U.S. even though the United States left the WHO earlier this year under President Trump's direction. So let's briefly check out what Kennedy said in his video statement.
Nations who accept the new regulations are signing over their power in health emergencies to an unelected international organization that could order lockdowns, travel restrictions, or any other measures it sees fit. In fact, it doesn't even need to declare an emergency. Potential public health risks are enough for it to initiate action.
In the joint statement, Rubio and RFK Jr. also said, our agencies have been and will continue to be clear. We will put Americans first in all our actions, and we will not tolerate international policies that infringe on American speech, privacy, or personal liberties. The Epstein's file incident has taken another turn. After 12 days of ups and downs, President Trump finally made the decision. He wrote on True Social on Tuesday night, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetuated by Democrats should end right now. Attorney General Pam Bondi quickly responded to President Trump's request. She wrote, President Trump, we are ready to move the court tomorrow to unseal the grand jury transcripts. And President Trump's decision may have something to do with a Wall Street Journal report. On Thursday, the Wall Street Journal claimed the existence of a letter that allegedly bears the president's name, dated 2003. The letter is described as featuring several lines of typewritten text surrounded by the outline of a naked woman sketched in marker. The letter reportedly concludes, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." However, the Wall Street Journal didn't specify that it had confirmed its authenticity. Both President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance have strongly denied the report. President Trump wrote, "This is not me. This is a fake thing. It's a fake Wall Street Journal story. I never wrote a picture in my life. I don't draw pictures of women. It's not my language. It's not my words." And J.D. Vance wrote on X, "Forgive my language, but this story is complete and utter. The Wall Street Journal should be ashamed for publishing it. Where is this letter? Would you be shocked to learn they never showed it to us before publishing it? Does anyone honestly believe this sounds like Donald Trump?" President Trump will also hold the Wall Street Journal accountable. He wrote, "I'm going to sue the Wall Street Journal just like I sued everyone else. Already beaten George Stephanopoulos, ABC, 60 Minutes, CBS, and others, and look forward to suing and holding accountable the once great Wall Street Journal." And today, President Trump filed the libel lawsuit against Dow Jones News Corp, Rupert Murdoch, and 2 Wall Street Journal reporters after the Wall Street Journal published the Epstein article. And as the media has reported already, President Trump said that Attorney General Pam Bondi had given him and others a very quick briefing on the Epstein file in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen. And President Trump accused that these files that the FBI has were made up by former FBI Director James Comey. After an interview with President Trump, Just the News wrote, Trump said he fears prior officials inside the FBI and intelligence agencies may have doctored files about Epstein. And on Wednesday, Bondi fired former FBI Director James Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey, for her role as a federal prosecutor. Two people familiar with the matter told Politico that the reason for her firing was not immediately clear, but she was responsible for prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell, and she also served as the prosecutor in the racketeering and sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs, which failed to prosecute him for sex trafficking. And also today, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard declassified documents related to the Russiagate investigation. Gabbard wrote on X, "Americans will finally learn the truth about how in 2016 intelligence was politicized and weaponized by the most powerful people in the Obama administration to lay the groundwork for what was essentially a years-long coup against President Donald Trump, subverting the will of the American people and undermining our democratic republic." Gabbard also wrote, "These documents detail a treasonous conspiracy by officials at the highest levels of the Obama White House to subvert the will of the American people and try to usurp the president from fulfilling his mandate." And now Gabbard has turned the documents over to the DOJ, and she's calling for criminal prosecutions. Names under scrutiny include John Brennan, James Comey, and other high-ranking officials from the Obama administration. We'll go through the lengthy report and break it down on Monday. So, CBS will cancel The Late Show with Stephen Colbert in 2026. The network announced this on Thursday, citing a financial decision. This original late-night program started when CBS Network lured David Letterman away from NBC in 1993. The program then leaned into liberal politics in the Trump era, and it had become a major platform for Democratic politicians. Last month, Colbert welcomed onto the show New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani. CBS executives said in a statement, "We are proud that Stephen called CBS home. He and the broadcast will be remembered in the pantheon of greats that graced late-night television. This is purely a financial decision against a challenging backdrop in late night. It's not related in any way to the show's performance, content, or other matters happening at Paramount." Such expensively produced evening programs do face a huge challenge since the younger audience that they're trying to attract watch more programs via digital video. Host Stephen Colbert also made the announcement to his audience. He said, "It's not just the end of our show, but it's the end of The Late Show on CBS. I'm not being replaced. This is all just going away." Colbert had been outspoken with his criticism of Paramount settling President Trump's lawsuit against the company over CBS's handling of the 60 Minutes interview with then Vice President Kamala Harris. Skydance Media CEO David Ellison, who would control CBS, is believed to desire a less partisan operation. Earlier this year, Stephen Colbert said that he might not be on TV this year, and unexpectedly, it came true.
Tide is just a little bit of sweet and sour, a little semi-sweet chocolate chip. It's the end of an era because this is our last show of the Biden administration. Yeah, it's been a good run. Yeah. It's been a good run, Joe. Thank you for all your efforts. The next time. Next time you all see me, Donald Trump will be president, and you may not see me. Next 4 years, we're taking this one day at a time. Last night, still President Biden gave his farewell address to the nation, now in typical Biden style.
Yesterday, the House passed the revised $9 billion Recision package and sent it to President Trump to sign. The vote was 216 to 213 in the House. Two Republican representatives, Mike Turner and Brian Fitzpatrick, voted against the bill. The bill came after the Senate passed the package early on Thursday morning with a vote of 51 to 48. Two Republican senators, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, voted against the bill in the Senate, although Senator Mitch McConnell voted against the bill in an earlier procedural vote. He later supported it. The passage of the package in the Senate represented one of the largest rescissions ever to be authorized under the process by the Senate. The rescission package includes $9 billion in cuts that were identified by the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. The bill includes $1.1 billion in funding cuts to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting for 2 years, which will affect NPR, PBS, and their member stations. During a press conference on Thursday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt responded to NPR CEO Catherine Maher's claim that funding cuts to NPR would be a public safety risk. Leavitt said, "I'm not sure how NPR helps the public safety of our country, but I do know that NPR unfortunately has become really just a propaganda voice for the left." And she gave the example of their refusal to cover the Hunter Biden laptop scandal in the run-up to the 2020 election. The bill also cuts $8 billion from the U.S. Agency for International Development. Yesterday, President Trump said that if authorities uncover central organizers or professional backing behind the violent immigration and custom enforcement riots across the country, then he will designate those groups as foreign or domestic terror organizations. This will be similar to what President Trump did with Mexican cartels in February. In an interview with Just the News, President Trump said, "I would do that. In a minute, I would do that." In the U.S., officially designating a group as a terrorist organization makes it a crime to provide material support. It also freezes the group's assets and restricts travel for its members and supporters under laws like the Patriot Act. The designation would allow law enforcement to use more tools to investigate and track threats. It also shows that the groups are seen as a danger both in the U.S. and abroad. But it could spark a public backlash. This is because in the United States, designations are rare because of free speech concerns. In June, we reported that the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the PSL, which is a self-described communist revolutionary group with ties to a China-linked Marxist funding network, have been leading nationwide protests against ICE. Protesters claim that ICE arrests of illegal migrants sparked the demonstrations in Los Angeles, which later escalated into riots. And PSL, which openly advocates for the overthrow of the American system and supports communist regimes, has organized anti-ICE protests in such U.S. cities as Chicago, San Francisco, and Austin, Texas. The PSL also promotes a Don't Open for ICE campaign. The PSL's activities are reportedly financially supported by Neville Roy Singham, who is a communist businessman funding far-left groups like the People's Forum, and the People's Forum shares close ties with the PSL. The group has been linked to pro-communist causes such as celebrating regimes like those in China and Cuba, while defending the October 2023 attacks on Israel by Hamas. And the Liberation School of the PSL promotes communist and Marxist ideology, and its merchandise glorifies communist figures and revolutions. We also reported on Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, who is a former leader of the Venceramos Brigade, the VB. VB is a pro-communist Cuba group that is tied to Cuban intelligence and linked to groups like the Weather Underground. U.S. intelligence agencies have identified the VB as a Cuban intelligence operation designed to recruit politically engaged Americans to influence U.S. government positions. And Bass traveled to Cuba multiple times in the 1970s with the VB. But Bass has described the VB as an educational project that is meant to build connections with Cuban society. And today, the VB is sponsored by the People's Forum. So, is it possible that this is one of the organizations that could be labeled a terrorist organization? In an attempt to expand its government contracting business, Microsoft allowed China-based engineers to help the U.S. Department of Defense develop its cloud systems, according to a latest ProPublica investigation report. But Microsoft failed to provide adequate safeguards. The behavior has raised concerns among national security experts about potential espionage. Microsoft reportedly launched a cloud computing program called Digital Escort in 2016 that enabled it to sell cloud services to the federal government. Although the program is designed to meet the security requirements of federal contractors, in practice, it allows global cybersecurity personnel, including those in China, to access U.S. government systems through so-called authorized U.S. escorts. But according to the Department of Defense, technicians with access to sensitive data must be U.S. citizens or permanent residents. Some of the technicians tasked with the oversight, who are paid $18 an hour, are often veterans who are hired because they have security clearances, but they lack sufficient technical skills to prevent potential insider threats or to identify dangerous code. And the Chinese Communist government enacted a new law a few years ago that obligates employees who are working in China to cooperate with the government's data collection activities. In other words, these global cybersecurity personnel in China will have to collect data that can be accessed and handed over to the Chinese Communist government whenever requested by the Beijing government, according to ProPublica. Michael Lucci, the CEO and founder of State Armor Action, said, "If ProPublica's report turns out to be true, Microsoft has created a national embarrassment that endangers our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. Heads should roll. Those responsible should go to prison, and Congress should hold extensive investigations to uncover the full extent of potential compromise. Microsoft or any vendor providing China with access to Pentagon secrets verges on treasonous behavior and should be treated as such." But Microsoft says that it has its own reasons. A Microsoft spokesperson insisted that all employees and contractors with privileged access permits for the digital escort program passed federally approved background checks. They also said that global technologists do not have direct access to customer data or systems. Furthermore, Microsoft has established multiple layers of security and control in accordance with the standards of the Federal Department of Defense and the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, including automated code review and system change approval processes. Microsoft utilizes this system for information that is below the classified level, such as information related to life safety, financial security, and military operational support, which fall under the Department of Defense's impact levels 4 and 5. However, this is still sensitive information. In response to ProPublica's report, Microsoft acknowledged that anyone with access to sensitive government systems, regardless of their role or location, is a potential source of risk. In fact, there's been a precedent for Microsoft security problems for a long time. In 2023, Chinese hackers managed to break into Microsoft's cloud services and steal a large amount of emails and data from high-ranking officials, including the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, the ambassador to China, and even tens of thousands of emails involving the Department of Defense. The Federal Cybersecurity Review Board released a report criticizing Microsoft's security protection vulnerabilities, but they did not mention the digital escort program. However, this does not mean that the digital escort program is safe. According to ProPublica, when they approached the Defense Information System Agency about the digital escort program, the agency was initially unaware of its existence, and they later said it was only for technical support in specific unclassified environments. Michael Lucci stated, "If these ProPublica allegations are credible, the federal government should never again rely on Microsoft to protect the data that keeps our men and women in uniform safe, especially given Microsoft's extensive record of being compromised by the CCP. Our military cannot operate in security and secrecy if a vendor repeatedly and intentionally invites the enemy into the camp." Today, the EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas announced that the European Union has reached an agreement on an 18 sanctions package targeting Russia's energy industry and shadow fleet. Kallas stated that the package would target 105 additional shadow fleet ships, their enablers, and it will limit the access of Russian banks to funding. The package is aimed at the Russian oil and energy industry, and it will lower the G7's price limit for crude oil from $60 to $47.60 per barrel. The new price limit will change over time. It will set the price of Russian oil sold to other countries at 15% less than the average market price, and it will move up and down as the market changes. An import ban has also been introduced on refined petroleum products that are made from Russian crude oil from third countries. But Russia has mostly been able to sell its oil above the old price cap because the current system doesn't clearly say who's responsible for policing its implementation. So Moscow responded to the new sanctions by suggesting that they would not have a significant impact on Russia. Dmitry Peskov, who is the press secretary for Russian President Putin, said, "We have acquired some immunity from sanctions. We have adapted to life under the conditions of sanctions." He also told the Russian outlet RIA that the Kremlin repeatedly says that such actions are illegal. But Ukrainian President Zelensky thanked those who helped make the package happen and called the decision essential and timely. Today, Britain also announced new sanctions against more than 20 Russian spies, hackers, and agencies. And today, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz also admitted that Europe spent too long relying on the United States for its defense and security, but Merz said that they were now on the same page. In an interview with the BBC, Merz said, "We know we have to do more on our own, and we have been free riders in the past, and the American guaranteed our freedom and our security, and they are not willing, understandably, to do that any longer. And they're asking us to do more, and we are doing more." And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.